It only remains for me now to await the daylight hours, when, with God's help, I will forever end this man's reign of terror.
Hello folks, and welcome to another episode of Hooked on Hammer, where we are delving into the wonderful world of Hammer horror. I'm Adam, your host, and here as always with me is Mike.
Back by unpopular demand.
To our 5 listeners out there, should we say?
I was the popular thing of the last episode.
That's debatable. I use big words.
You struggle with big words.
I know, but I managed to use one or two at least. Anyway, so for this episode, folks, we're going to be looking at Terence Fisher's 1958 film, Dracula. I was about to say the other title then, Mike, but it did release under another title in the US, didn't it?
Came out in the US as Horror of Dracula.
And released as a double feature with A Thing That Couldn't Die in 1958 as well.
I think it was to differentiate between the Bela Lugosi 1931 Dracula to this one, so masses weren't going to the cinema thinking they were going to see
another Bela Lugosi.
Yeah. I think at the time they were doing a lot of re-releasing of the old Universal films. They were constantly in and out of the theatre anyway.
Children of the night, what music they make.
He's alive! He's alive!
Script written by Jimmy Sangster with the score by James Bernard. Again, two big players in Hammer. They were involved in our previous film for the last episode, Curse of Frankenstein.
Yep, and with Terence Fisher, Jimmy Sangster, James Bernard, they're key players in quite a few of the films we're likely to explore.
Obviously the same crew, basically, as Curse of Frankenstein.
Pretty much same cast with a couple of additions.
Obviously, as you said, a few additions. Michael Gough comes into this.
Yep, as most people will recognise him from playing Alfred in Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Forever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Batman and Robin as well.
Yeah, we don't try not to talk about those types of films.
No.
The less said about Batman and Robin and...
Batman Forever.
Yeah, the less said about those two, the better.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a good amount of nostalgia.
I don't think there is.
I don't know, I haven't seen him recently, so I do enjoy Arnold Schwarzenegger's puns in it, though, I want to admit.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
Allow me to break the ice.
Frosty!
Can you imagine him being in a Hammer horror film?
No.
How would you even, how would that even happen?
My name is Count Dracula. I welcome you to my house.
Oh, that was a pretty good impression, to be fair.
Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the little child, and they're like, oh, who was it, Susie? I'm Lucy. My name is Jonathan Harker. I've come to organise your library.
That was a strong Scottish in there, then.
I don't know. I've come to inspect your bookshelf.
Sean, what's Sean doing here?
My name is not Sean, it's Mina.
Can you imagine if we did Twins of Evil?
Him and Dad.
Oh, shit.
5 hours later. Several long days later.
Anyway, let's get into it. Cue the footsteps.
I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my house.
In the name of God, you dare not!
This is more than a superstition, I know. The danger is very real.
It's a criminal lunatic. He tried to kill you.
We've discovered the source of life itself, and we've used it to restore a creature that was dead.
It begins. Come on.
So before we get into the meat of it, like we did in the first episode, we need to understand where the bones came from and a little bit of background on the film. So, shot in Bray Studios, Mike?
Yep, same with Curse of Frankenstein, same with a lot of the films that came out after that.
Yeah.
Using that as a location, being able to dress themselves, it's cheap, it's efficient. You can't tell it's the same place from film to film, except for when there is a sequel and it needs to be the same place. With the ending of Curse of Frankenstein, it was a very short period of time between that film and this film starting principal photography.
Yeah.
It was around about November 1957 that they initially began. I think that ended around about December 24th, just before Christmas.
Nice timing.
Yeah. Everybody gets to break up for Mr. Jesus.
The irony of a Dracula film breaking to celebrate Jesus' birthday.
But the team ended up finishing production around about the 3rd or 4th of January 1958. So it was a very quick turnaround for
that is
Dracula.
Very, very quick. When did Curse finish then?
Curse was done and dusted well before May 57.
Yeah.
So they had a fair few months to get ready for the production into this. The turnaround being, November to January 57 to 58 for this release is just phenomenal.
Yeah, that is a very quick turnaround.
This is the story of Dracula, a creature who destroys all whom he touches. Dracula the terrifying, the feared, who sleeps in the tombs of the dead by day and arises at night to inflict his terror upon the innocent and the unsuspecting.
You must help me. You must. You're my only hope. You must.
I'll help you. I promise.
So the film opens on some beautiful exterior shots of Dracula's castle. See all the different gargoyles, the architecture.
And we get the typography as well. Dracula itself, and then the red text over the Technicolor background that we see. Because it's sandstone type browns and sepia colours, that red really pops again.
Yeah, massively. From there we go down into the depths of the castle and we see Dracula's coffin.
Yeah.
And we get that lovely drip.
The lovely drip of that red blood that comes down. Again, there were problems with the censors with this because it's...
Oh, really?
It's from an unknown source. You don't know where the blood's coming from. When we think reasonably minded audiences, will it cause offence?
Yeah.
This was something that was a bit questionable.
And then we meet Jonathan Harker, played by...
John Van Essen. I think he's a South African British actor. He starred in a couple of Hammer productions before this, but only as bit parts. I think it was Men of Sherwood and one of the Quatermass films.
Second one, if I remember correctly.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen very carefully. If you ever hear a sound like this, run for your life. Run before it is too late. For if you stay, you will lose your soul.
He's on his way to Castle Dracula to work as a librarian.
Yeah, which is different than the 1931 because, of course, we see
it's Renfield.
Yeah, going there to sell Carfax Abbey.
Over the top of this, we've got Jonathan Harker's narration as he writes in his diary.
Yeah, which is similar to the Bram Stoker's original novel, which was all from the perspective.
Yeah, I struggled reading it a bit the first time because it's told from diary entries, letters, kind of expecting it just to be a normal novel.
Yeah, it sounds like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Where it's written from first and third person. This is all first person diary entry.
The Diary of Jonathan Harker, 3rd of May, 1885. At last, my long journey is drawing to its close. What the eventual end will be, I cannot foresee. But whatever may happen, I can rest secure that I will have done all in my power to achieve success.
So he arrives at Castle Dracula, not as theatrical, should we say, as the Universal one.
One thing I want to point out about him entering, which gives me flashbacks
to the Chad in case
of the mega Chad. Paul entering the house, just waltzing in and walking in. Jonathan didn't even knock. Opens the door, walks in, walks up to the table, and fortunately he finds a letter that's addressed to him, so obviously that was the formality for it. And then he just proceeds to make a mess.
Comes in, throws cutlery and stuff around.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I don't know Dracula's bird.
Yeah, this threw me.
Anybody who took the opportunity to go away from our last podcast, you know, after saying about 67 years, we can't really spoil the film, will be, I suppose, familiar with the person, is Valerie Gaunt. Who, in the previous film,
was Justine,
the
one who got killed, and
appears in this one as, I think she's credited as like Vampire Girl.
That's a pretty poor character name.
I don't know, Lava Girl, Shark Boy. It's all the same.
Mike, we can't go off topic again.
Credit to Jimmy Sangster for the creativity with the names.
Yeah, or should we say lack of creativity with that name.
And I think, unfortunately, this is Gaunt's last, soiree with Hammer. Pretty sure she only did Curse of Frankenstein and then this film. Didn't appear for anything else. It's great, though, seeing her come in as his character. You have that tilt when Harker's on the floor after he's knocked over the cutlery. And the tilt comes up and you follow his eyesight, his gaze, up to her standing up.
Kind of just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's almost like behind his chair or something. How long's she been there? How didn't he see her?
Going into young Frankenstein territory again. Yeah. Not like roll in the hair, right? Like
I don't know. Jonathan's smile really looks like he's not looking at her eyes.
I mean, to be fair, I think anyone would smile at that, to be fair.
Frankenstein certainly smiled.
Are you jealous?
No. Yes. Yes, I am jealous.
Jonathan, standing up, obviously gives her the smile.
Yeah.
Looking at her, and she immediately appears as a damsel in distress. The white dress, the dark hair. If we look at any German expressionist film from the past, that is your typical damsel in distress who is being pursued by a monster.
Yeah.
It needs to be saved by a hero. In this scene, we're assuming that Jonathan is going to be our hero, and this is our damsel that he's going to save through the film.
Yeah.
She embraces him. She reaches in, asks if he'll protect her, help her. He asked if Dracula's keeping her captive.
Yeah.
And then, like
deer in the headlights.
Yeah, she's gone.
Yeah.
She starts running away, and you have that score by James Bernard come in. This whimsical as she's running away, which is then followed by the bam bam bam.
Yeah, and we get introduced to Christopher Lee's Dracula.
Please help me to escape.
Not dissimilar to how we see Bela Lugosi standing up the top of those stairs.
Yeah.
The difference between the two, Bela Lugosi remains at the top of the stairs and is a complete and utter creep by talking about Children of the Night. What mess they make.
No, it's Dracula dead on the minute.
Oh, Leslie Nielsen.
Just that perfect deadpan humour, isn't
Brilliant. And again, ruined a lot of Dracula films.
yeah. Much like Mel Brooks did with Frankenstein.
Yeah.
He's done exactly the same with Dracula.
Children of the Night. What a mess they make. I am Count...
And the difference with Christopher Lee's Dracula is he actually walks down the stairs.
Yeah.
And when he approaches Jonathan, he's not a creep.
No, he's a very... I know where you're going with this, Mike.
What is he?
He's a polite yet terrifying individual.
He's very charming.
Yeah.
He's deceptive. He's disarming.
But I think that is why the Brits are so good at playing villains.
Yeah.
I think it's to do with the accent. We're very likeable, relatable. I'm saying this and you're laughing, but we're not fucking relatable.
What do you? I don't mind it. If you want some, I'll give it you.
That is bloody lovely.
It's very hard to bring them to mind, this is the thing. It's alright when you're daughters and not going and happy as ours. You understand?
Fucking twat. Who wants a fucking burger?
Yeah, we're charming. That's not a villain, that's a hero.
That's a legend. Oh.
Hold on to your butts.
To be honest, I think that's why the Brits are probably the best at playing the villains.
Yeah.
Like, very charismatic, but hiding in plain sight, essentially.
Yeah. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And instead of standing at the top of the stairs like Bela Lugosi being a creep talking about children of the night, he comes down, approaches Jonathan Harker, and says,
Mr. Harker, I'm glad that you've arrived safely.
Count Dracula.
I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my house.
Very formal.
Yeah. And very, like you said, polite.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I mean by it's disarming. You're expecting him to be this weird creep that's going to 1 minute be in front of a massive cobweb.
Yeah.
And then he's behind it the next moment.
Yeah.
Instead, he's natural. He's human.
There was something a lot more eerie about Lugosi instead of Lee, I'd say.
The way that Lugosi played the character, it was something ethereal, something unnatural. Whereas Christopher Lee is putting in realism. I said it before with The Curse of Frankenstein, the verisimilitude, it was trying to be more realistic than, say, the American version, which was more theatrical.
Yeah.
With this one as well, Jimmy Sangster had actually removed a lot of that, what he termed fairy tale elements. So within this one, he doesn't change. He doesn't transform into anything else that, you know, is typical of vampire films.
We never see Lee do that.
No, and that's to ground it in realism. So this man coming down, he is greeting him like anybody else.
Yeah.
I suppose for me, that's what gets under my skin more than Bela Lugosi.
It's such a drastic difference the next time you see him.
Yeah.
Because the next time you see him, obviously, he's just had his feed, should we say.
Yeah.
And you see him come in, the bloodshot eyes, and that image is just absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, I think it's used on almost every advertising I've had, is the image of him coming through that door, you know, snarling and growling with the blood on his face. Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. That reveal in Dracula, or the reveal in Curse of Frankenstein. They're both fantastic in their own ways.
I've got to go for my favourite film, Curse of Frankenstein.
I was going to say, the quick...
That quick crash zoom into him, and then again the rip-off of the bandage. That doesn't take away from the impact of Dracula bursting through that door.
Yeah.
With the contact lenses in, which, again, almost blinded him. Just like the shot to the eye in Frankenstein.
Doesn't have a lot of luck with stuff going in his eyes, Christopher Lee, does he?
No. I wonder if Lord of the Rings, like a stray arrow, hit him in the eye.
Probably. Mike, you did mention something earlier about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
In regards to, I think it was his walk you were saying outside the podcast.
One of the things that always amazes me, and this is coming from somebody who can barely stand up, let alone take 2 steps at a time, when he's leading Jonathan to his bedroom and saying, oh, I'm going to be away for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Let me take your bags and whatever else. He takes the steps 2, 3 at a time and just glides up those stairs and then is just almost power walking ahead of Jonathan across the landing area, going to the room that he's staying in.
Now, please, allow me. Unfortunately, my housekeeper is away at the moment. A family bereavement, you understand?
Yes, of course, sir.
However, I think you will find that everything has been prepared for your comfort.
Peter Jackson had requested Christopher Lee to do something similar in Lord of the Rings as Saruman, going up a couple of stairs.
That would have been great, to be fair.
It would have, if the man was not already, you know, getting on in life in his 80s.
I was going to say, this is 1957.
Yeah.
This was shot, and what year was Lord of the Rings filmed?
2000, 2001, 2002.
Yeah, it's a couple additional years.
Yeah, only a few.
Only a few. It's fine, you know.
Yeah.
We can just replace your hip if it goes.
Yeah. Jackson had asked him to kind of glide up those stairs. I think it was in Isengard with Gandalf.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the behind-the-scenes footage, he says something to Gandalf, goes to walk up the stairs, and as he gets about a step or 2 up, breaks and says,
advise, persuade. I'm sorry, I cannot get up these goddamn steps smoothly.
I don't think the man can do it. But I don't blame him. I can't even get up from a chair.
I think we touched on your age earlier, but you're not in your 80s yet.
No, I've still got about 67 years.
Is that like physical or mental age? Mentally, I'm about 5, I'll give you that.
Yeah, I'd probably go for 5. At a push. Depends who you ask.
We're just children.
Harker is then left by himself in his room.
Yeah.
Gets his diary back out, starts jotting things down. And this is where we get a pretty big twist. And this is very, very early in the film as well.
Yeah, it's maybe about 15 minutes in.
We find out that he's basically a vampire hunter and he's come to try and kill Dracula.
Yeah.
And it's that really great moment where he's just sat there. You can see him pondering things over before he writes, and you hear the narration's really well done. And you get that wonderful moment then with him saying,
"It only remains for me now to await the daylight hours, when, with God's help, I will forever end this man's reign of terror."
And you see Dracula walking away from the castle, and you're like, oh shit.
There's a really good hour-long documentary by Neil Brand who talks about James Bernard's scores through the different films. We didn't mention it all that much within the Curse of Frankenstein. The Curse of Frankenstein had great soundtrack to be able to go from something that's menacing to something that's innocent, like we said about the Pass the Marmalade scene.
Yeah.
It goes from something that's dark and eerie and gets under your skin to melodic and peaceful. This, it's building as he's narrating, cuts to Dracula, advancing. You know, this reign of terror that Harker's mentioning is still happening whilst he's in the castle, and that score just hits. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Good input. Passage of time happens. We see that he's fallen asleep next to the fire.
Yeah.
And he's woken up by the unlocking of the door. Dracula had previously locked him in there. So it's unusual why it would be unlocked. And of course, curiosity gets the better of him. He leaves the room because he's got a mission.
Doesn't he know curiosity killed the cat?
Curiosity killed the cat, you know.
But Harker starts walking around, you know, the halls.
Yeah.
And he starts seeing the shadows. It's almost like the shadows are leading him somewhere.
Yeah.
And of course, he walks into that room, and the door slowly closes.
And she's behind that.
Yeah, we have Valerie going behind that door.
Mr. Harker, you will help me.
Pleading with him to help her and like imploring him to help her. You mentioned he was a bit of a Chad in this scene.
Yeah.
Because he turned around and was like, well, you need to tell me why I need to help you before I decide whether or not to help you.
He's given her terms. If you want me to save you, you have to tell me why I should.
She gives a little bit of information out.
Yeah, saying that Dracula's evil if you knew how evil he was.
Yeah, this cracks me up though, because he's obviously there to kill Dracula, so he knows exactly what he's like.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't know that though.
No. So it's almost like you or I walked in there.
Yeah.
As, I don't know, the plumber or something. Not at this point, but the plumber. Valerie Gorn appears and says, "Please, you've got to help me. You'd help me if you knew how evil he was." And you and I would just be sat there going, "What do you want about his evil?"
The man of many accents, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Murphy. He decides, okay, I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
Being a decent gentleman, but, you know.
Ulterior motives.
Yes, massively. Massively. But then we get that nice reveal when she's like...
Yeah, they're in like a comforting embrace.
Yeah.
And her face slowly strokes across his shoulder.
Yeah.
And she's eyeballing his neck. And that's probably one of the first times that you see a vampire with fangs.
So there was actually a film that released in 1952 in Finland titled The White Reindeer. And that was, in fact, the first film that showed elongated fangs.
Ooh.
The more you know.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, we didn't see it in any of the Universal Dracula films.
You don't see any fangs, so to speak,
no.
at all.
She opens her mouth and reveals those two fangs. You have the score swelling, and he throws her away.
I mean, yeah, wouldn't you if somebody tried to bite you?
Yeah, but usually I just, like, slap the gnat away.
You can't do that with an actress.
No. I mean, with a vampire you probably could.
You make a good point, to be fair.
Yeah. That's exactly what Dracula does next.
Yeah, that big reveal, as we were saying earlier.
Yeah. That iconic shot.
Terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And then he leaps over a table.
Yeah. We've already seen him run up those stairs.
I know, but
then... jogger's pace. So, being a hurdler, that's not unheard of.
This was even more impressive, though, because he was blind when he did it.
I think the amount of times they had to do it, because he kept missing the mark. Because, of course, he jumps across the table and then grabs her and rags her across the room.
Yeah, she's like a feral animal at this point.
Well, both of them are.
Yeah.
It's almost like a lion and a lioness fighting over the prey.
That this is one that I don't understand, is why he tries to stop Dracula. I get it to a point, but it's still, for me, it doesn't make sense.
It kind of exposes him a little bit, but then at the same time, like the plumber scenario, if you were there and this guy's just jumped over the table and ragged the woman who said this man is pure evil, wouldn't you?
But then she bit me.
What did he say?
But that doesn't justify domestic violence. He's not going to turn around and be like, oh, well, she bit me and that's why I said nothing.
I still wouldn't defend somebody who bit me.
I mean, if it was a zombie film, then yeah, I'd completely agree. I'm giving immortality here.
It's not always a gift, though.
No, but as long as I look like Dorian Gray and not Moby Dick, it'll be fine.
Moby Dick?
I couldn't think of an ugly immortal.
You could have just said Nosferatu.
Oh shit, I could have.
Yeah, he wasn't exactly a bit of a looker, was he?
From
there, then, Harker...
Oh, Dracula gives him the Vulcan death grip and throws him across the room, and then he passes out. And then something happens to Gaunt, her character, off screen again. So again, we hear that scream. Something happened in Curse of Frankenstein off screen where we had that screaming.
Yeah.
And then we have this one where we get that scream again. Is she the original Scream Queen? I'm going to say no, she was only in 2 films.
Yeah, I'll probably agree.
But a scream is good. It's chilling.
It's no Wilhelm, though.
No.
I don't know, hearing a Wilhelm in Curse of Frankenstein is just... It's just not going to be as menacing or terrifying, is it?
Professor, look out! do your best Wilhelm impression. So you get attacked by like a giant anaconda in the jungle.
See, that's why I don't scream like that.
Yeah, I think that was worse than mine.
It was bad. For our listeners, the Wilhelm scream has been around since...
1951. A film called Distant Drums.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's been used... Well, it was used in all 3 Lord of the Rings films. I think that leads to Harker being unconscious on the floor.
Yeah.
And then, like, falling asleep in the back of an Uber and the Uber driver carrying you into your room. Obviously picked up and taken to his room, laid on the bed. One of the things that I love about the cinematography in Hammer films is that there's always something in the foreground.
Yeah.
And you pointed it out whilst we were watching the film earlier, a great image of passage of time.
Oh, it's just so simple and so effective. Just seeing that candle lit and burning, and then I think it was a dissolve across, but then you go and you just see the candle and it completely burnt out. It's just smoke and just melted wax.
Yeah.
It's just so simple.
It is something to point out for these films, and especially this one. When Harker first arrives, you've got the camera that's like tracking across this foyer, and pillars are in the way, and it obscures a lot of things, and it's a strange choice to have.
Yeah.
But we see it in the opening with the cannon, we see it with the walls, and Jonathan walks behind them, but you can still see him in view. It's almost like we're hiding around the location and just observing.
Yeah.
So we're at risk too, watching this film. And I think for the time, when everything was pretty much shot like it was a stage play, where you have to have somebody in focus, or you have to have people in a semicircle, if there's a group of people, this is fantastic because it just puts you into the action.
Yeah, it's impressive in its own right, to be honest. And we didn't really see it a lot in Curse of Frankenstein.
No, I think maybe the laboratory.
Yeah.
You know, where we've got the benches in front of them and they're behind all of the beakers. Yeah. But otherwise, it's very central to them.
Yeah.
Jonathan, of course, wakes up then. Starts having a look around the room to see if the door's locked, to see if he can escape and what's happened.
Not really sure if it was a dream or if it actually happened.
Yeah. And then, of course, he picks up the mirror to reveal that he's got the 2 bite marks with the blood going down his neck. And we learn later on that the majority of the victims of Dracula start off as anemic, becoming ill, and his first instinct is to sit down, pick up his diary, and start spitting rhymes into the diary.
Dear Slim, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling.
I have become a victim of Dracula and the woman in his power. It may be that I am doomed to be one of them.
And then as the wannabe Chad that he is, decides, okay, I'm going to go after Dracula and you know, the vampire woman.
Yeah.
And he jumps out the window. He, of course, puts his diary in the Holy Vigil.
Yeah.
And then starts to hunt them down.
Yeah.
Finding them in the most obvious place, the basement, technically. He has the opportunity to kill Dracula. If he killed Dracula there and then, it would have killed the other woman as well, because of how old she was. But it would have ended his reign of terror. Instead,
he goes after the one that bit him.
Yeah, he goes after the woman who bit him. She starts screaming and it obviously wakes up Dracula.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing.
I mean, intelligence is a wonderful thing. Common sense is a wonderful thing. He's a vampire hunter.
Yeah, he should know better, to be fair. I never really thought about that. Should definitely know better. And of course, he does that, she dies.
Yeah.
There's a really cool shot then, he goes back to her, and she's now some, like, decrepit old woman, hag
like
type
an old
thing.
hag.
Yeah.
Yeah, who you can see breathing on the Blu-ray copy.
Can you?
Yeah.
So then he goes to kill Dracula, who at this point is up and at him.
You see Dracula open his eyes as soon as she screams.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a air raid siren going off for him.
Yeah.
And then he just randomly decides to play hide and seek. Having Harker go over, see he's not there.
Yeah.
The slow look up towards the doorway.
You have missed out a really, really cool shot. When darkness falls, you see outside the window, and you just get that really evil, sinister smile, and it's like, oh, mate, you're screwed. You are so screwed.
You're screwed. This hide and seek's extending to outside now. The light from the outside changes from kind of like an ambery colour to a blue.
Yeah.
And you know that the sun has set.
Yeah.
Harker looking into this empty coffin, looking up towards the doorway. You know, that's his only escape. The look on Aeson's face, his performance in this, is fantastic because it's reactionary. It's him accepting
death.
Yeah, I'm done now.
Yeah, I can't do anything
I'm looking
else.
up to it as he walks into that doorway and the door slowly closing.
Yeah.
He sealed his fate.
To an extent, he kind of expected something like this. That's why he put the diary where he put the diary.
Well, yeah, as he said, if somebody finds my body, hopefully they'll know what to do.
Yeah. Poor bugger.
I can only pray that whoever finds my body will possess the knowledge to do what is necessary to release my soul.
We get introduced to Peter Cushing's Van Helsing.
Yeah. Just like in Curse of Frankenstein, but this film, fantastic performance. Yeah. Absolutely love Peter Cushing in every film that I've seen him in.
As I said in the last episode, I don't think I can name a bad film he's been in.
There are similarities with Victor.
Yeah.
But this one is more empathetic, more human
than
the sociopath, psychopath type of character that Victor was.
Yeah.
Even in this scene where he's looking around the tavern this inn, looking around different things. He's not making the people around him appear stupid. He's asking questions, providing validation to their fears when he asks.
What are you afraid of?
I don't understand you.
But why all these garlic flowers over the window? They're not for decoration, are they?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think you do.
Watching this before doing the podcast, it dawned on me how much this scene influenced that slaughtered lamb scene in An American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
Like, the whole bit where he turns around and he's like, oh, what's the garlic here for? And all of that, that's very reminiscent of David and Jack being like, oh, what's that star on the wall for?
You made me miss.
Like, yeah, you just expecting that in this Hammer scene, and obviously this is years prior to American Werewolf even being a thing.
Definitely. And it's that uncomfortable environment that this is an outsider. He's now highlighted something that's quite sensitive. And even the innkeeper in this scene...
they're trying to hide it, aren't they?
Yeah, hide their own fear so that they're not preyed upon.
Yeah.
They don't want to be the victim. And even the innkeeper says to Van Helsing...
You ordered a meal, sir. As an innkeeper, it's my duty to serve you. When you've eaten, I ask you to go and leave us in peace.
So it's taking that danger away from them. So it's almost like Van Helsing is as dangerous as if Dracula walked into the inn.
Yeah. True. I didn't think of it like that.
You wouldn't.
And of course, then we get the reveal of Harker's diary from the bar wench you named her, wasn't it?
Well, that's how her father treats her.
Yeah,
I assume it's a dad and not a husband.
Nice. Not very nice at all.
No, you pointed out, how did they get the diary? And they mentioned that it was at the crossroads. Well, no, it was just outside the castle.
Yeah.
If they're that afraid, why are they going to the castle?
Somebody's definitely been doing a bit of snooping.
Yeah, it was probably Frankenstein and Paul.
Paul the Chad going around stealing people's shit that isn't even his.
Yeah,
like,
gonna go kill monsters that aren't even his.
What an absolute monster. Like, never mind about Baron like dissolving people's heads in acid. This guy's way worse.
Oh, definitely. Worst of humanity.
I'm Paul Kremper.
Oh, Paul Kremper.
Fucking Chad. And then, of course, we get to Castle Dracula, and we see Peter Cushing arriving just as... Well, as I said here, you don't know who's in the coffin at the time, do you?
Yeah.
You find out later on in the film. But yeah, as he arrives, that speeds off. They're not wasting any time. Like, I don't think he's going to be late for anything anymore.
He arrives precisely when he means to.
Gandalf, just on his pipe weed all the time.
That's why he's always late.
He's not late, he arrives precisely when he means to.
Shooting off fireworks, smoking his pipe weed.
How have we gone from Hammer Horror to Lord of the Rings again? Like, Christopher Lee's in it, but
yeah,
it's just taking the mick a bit. And as you said earlier, just pure genius we got from Michael Gough to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito doing a remake of Twins of Evil. Just pure genius. You're very lucky to be listening to this podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Is it luck or misfortune?
Bit of both, I think. You can be lucky in misfortune.
That's called unlucky.
Just made me look like a white jackass.
You have done that yourself.
From the inn, then we followed Dr. Van Helsing across to Castle Dracula as he's still looking for Jonathan Harker.
Yeah.
After getting the journal that the barmaid, is it barmaid or
innkeeper's daughter, whatever.
She obviously said that she was going to burn it.
Yeah.
Or she was told to burn it, and apparently you looked too nice. So she
didn't burn it. I mean, Edward Woodward looked really nice in The Wicker Man, and they still burnt him.
Oh God! Oh Jesus Christ!
That's a hell of a comparison. Wow.
Wow.
He goes obviously looking for Harker in Castle Dracula, goes up to Harker's room. He's not quiet about any of this as well when he goes in.
No. Storms into the house, uninvited. Makes himself at home, walks straight up to the bedroom.
At least he wasn't going in, giving somebody shit, and then that somebody turned out to be his boss.
And not eyeballing someone's auntie.
Yeah, true.
I'm Paul Kremper.
From there we go into him in Harker's room, and it's just been ransacked. It's in complete disarray. I think he pieces it together that it is Harker's room then when he sees the photo frame that he had the photo of Lucy, that Dracula was being a little bit saucy over earlier.
He was simping over.
Simping.
It doesn't look like somebody's been searching through all the different things that...
Yeah, looking for valuable...
Yeah, Dracula's...
Well, 2 steps ahead. That's why he failed before Van Helsing got there.
Yeah.
So I've done what I needed to do, I'm out.
Yeah, and went away on his horse-drawn carriage.
I know, and a fancy new coffin and everything.
Yeah, he left his stone one there. Poor Harker got a hand-me-down.
Oh, how much was that? They've been given a hand-me-down coffin. Can't even afford to die.
Well, at least he's allowed to feast on human blood and not insects and bugs and stuff.
Yeah, that is true. Well, that was the big difference. There's no Renfield in this film.
Yeah.
He doesn't come up at all.
No.
Big change with Harker's character as well. It's, as you said, as we said, as you said in the previous one, this is what makes Hammer great. They'll take you down a path familiar enough to be like, we know what you're expecting. So we'll give you a little bit of this, but then, you think we're going to go right here, we're going to go left and diagonal and upside down, and we're going to take you down here.
If I'm remembering correctly from the 31 adaptation, Renfield arrives at Castle Dracula, he meets with Dracula, and he ends up succumbing to becoming his familiar.
Yeah.
And he ends up going on the...
Demeter.
I was going to say Dementor then. He's just riding on the back of the guards from Azkaban.
To Azkaban! Mike, I'm deducting 10 points from Gryffindor for that.
It was a good thing I'm in Slytherin.
Well, that is fine. Dumbledore's going to award them fucking 1,000,000 points at the end of the film anyway, so they always win.
Gryffindor are in the lead on house points. Will Slytherin hold the House Cup for a 7th consecutive year?
And this is all before he goes down into the crypt, finds the remnants of the hag, and from her coffin, we see Harker in Dracula's hand-me-down coffin, brandishing his brand new pearly white fangs.
Yeah. He knows what he's got to do at this point.
Yeah. It's a good moment. You can see the conflict in his eyes, you can see it in his face, that this is his friend, this is his work partner. They knew the danger going into it, and they were doing it to save everyone else. And unfortunately, if he doesn't do this, then he's left to
come back as a vampire, basically, and do Dracula's bidding.
Yeah.
You don't actually see him stake Jonathan Harker.
No.
You obviously see him pick it up and prep, should we say. From there, we cut to Van Helsing explaining what's happened to Jonathan Harker to Lucy's older brother. I'd say older.
Yeah.
Yeah, older brother, Arthur.
Dr. Van Helsing, I am not at all satisfied. You suddenly appear and tell us that Jonathan Harker is dead. And yet you will not tell us where or how he died.
Alfred's pretty pissed.
Yeah.
Van Helsing's not exactly being very forthcoming with him here.
No. And he comes across really upset to a point that you think that it was his brother that has passed away, or his other half that has passed away.
Do you think he's upset that he's dead, or he's upset that he's just fucked off and left his sister?
Maybe a bit of both. And maybe
both.
Also the ambiguity around it.
Well, that, and I'm assuming, obviously this is set in 1885.
Yeah.
Marriages weren't just willy-nilly back then, and they've got money by the looks of it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm safe in assuming that this is probably some sort of arrangement.
Possibly.
Potentially. We never really go into that much detail on it, let's be honest.
They don't really explain the family all that much. You kind of just get it through the interactions with one another. As I mentioned, he's more irate because the ambiguity around the Van Helsing, like you say, is not being forthcoming with much of the detail.
Well, yeah, he's basically like, well, you've seen the death certificate.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, signed by you, and what more do you want?
Yeah, it's very dodgy.
Yeah,
when you put it that way. Yeah, I don't think you could sign your pal's death certificate and just pass her on to the family and be like, he's dead, don't worry.
So, yeah, he wants answers.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, they turn around then after Van Helsing leaves, and they're like, oh, is she well enough to know? And you're like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah. And that leads us into seeing Lucy, who we find out she's showing the exact same symptoms of what Jonathan had.
We find out that she's basically opening the door so Dracula can come in and just drink the blood.
Yeah. You did it in the last episode. I'm doing it this episode. This scene, and many other scenes, has been ruined by yet another Mel Brooks film.
You will be my bride throughout eternity. We'll share the endless passion of immortal love.
Oh, I can't wait.
Not you!
Thank you, Mel Brooks. The one thing I picked up in this scene, the score, I didn't realise how similar that scene in Salem's Lot was.
Where they're outside the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will admit, still, even now I struggle to watch it. It scares the shit out of me. The way Toby Hooper did it, he shot it all in reverse to me. You can't quite put your finger on why it doesn't look like.
It's definitely more chilling than, say, Christopher Lee, the scary, polite gentleman.
Oh, I knew you were going to say it.
Standing in the doorway.
You're never going to let me live this down here.
Nope.
Moving on.
Before we do, I just want to mention about James Bernard's score for Dracula. Bernard did say the 3-note theme for Dracula came from breaking down the syllables of the word Dracula. So, Dracula. Within.
Can you do that again, Mike?
Dracula.
Dracula. Dracula.
Boom! Shakalaka! That can't be good.
But we see the influence of using syllables to create, an atmospheric sound to a primary theme. Case in point with Toby Hooper's Friday the 13th.
You need to leave.
Sorry, Mike, who's Friday the 13th?
Sean S. Cunningham.
That's hit me. That was your last episode. Fired with immediate effect.
It's like Grandpa Simpson. I was confident that Toby Hooper made Friday the 13th.
So, Mike, what were you trying to say?
I was trying to say, we see a very similar thing with using the syllables for words in the theme for Sean S. Cunningham's Friday the 13th.
But you got it in the end. But yeah, good point. The kill Marsh, isn't it, basically? The syllables in that, for anyone listening who doesn't know that. You've been saying cha-cha-cha, for the last 40 odd years. Hang your head in shame.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
When we see Dracula feed on Lucy, this is one of the times they do, I'd say, take the audience in the direction you expect to see in a Dracula film, because before he bites, you see pull the cape up.
Yeah.
And that's it, very similar to the way the Ghostie did it. For me, going into this next scene now, this is probably one of my favourite scenes in the film, because you've got Van Helsing listening to himself on a dictaphone, is it?
Yeah, he's
or
recording
whatever
himself,
he's recording himself on. And for me, if you listen to it and he's like making notes and it's going over like what works for a vampire, what doesn't, what's legend and that, Hammer is basically creating their own set of rules and law for their Dracula universe, very much the way Universal did with like the Wolfman. This is the poem in the film.
Yeah.
It's meant to be like some really old Romanian gypsy thing, and it's not. It was just written for the film.
Yeah.
And every film since has come up with their own iteration, like Zombies, for example.
Plague of Zombies by Hammer. Pre-1968 Night of the Living Dead film.
Yeah.
The majority of zombies were all controlled with voodoo or black magic.
Yeah, they
And
were,
then
weren't they?
When it comes to Night of the Living Dead, it's supposedly germs from space that have come down with a satellite that's crashed. Later on, when we get Return of the Living Dead, is where we get the first mention of zombies wanting brains, and then everything in pop culture, when zombies are mentioned, they say brains. So you mentioned the Wolfman.
The Universal one.
The Universal one.
Whereas if you compare that to Hammer's, the law and, like, because he can control it a lot more in The Curse of the Werewolf than...
And he can feel it coming.
Yeah.
And there isn't so much dictated by the moon or by the pentagram symbol on the hand.
It's a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
But yeah, this scene basically sets out the law for the Hammer vampire films that are now and obviously that are going to come afterwards.
Yeah. It's very much that scene in Curse of Frankenstein when we see the lab, we see all the apparatus within the laboratory.
Sets the standard.
It's the pseudoscience behind everything.
Yeah.
It's giving you reason to why this exists or how this exists and what preventions are in place with it. But no, I agree. It's a fantastic moment for them to lead into the countless Dracula and vampire sequels.
Yeah.
Vampires, certain basic facts established. 1. The vampire allergic to light. Sunlight fatal. 2. Vampires repelled by odor of garlic. 3. The crucifix, symbolizing the power of good over evil.
It is a moment of brevity when I think it's his butler walks in.
Comes in, he's like, I thought you were going crazy talking to somebody else.
Yeah.
And he turns around and he's like, I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
And
as he leaves, Peter Cushing just gives this little smirk.
Well, sir, to tell you the truth, when I was outside, I thought I heard you talking to someone.
Well, of course you did. I was talking to myself.
Hammer goes into the blood aspect of, like, vampirism. My God, that's another big word for me, folks. Goes into kind of why they need to drink blood, and he compares it at one point to something similar to a drug addict.
Yeah.
Which, again, nothing's really gone into much detail. You don't really get a lot on it in previous films to this, do you?
And I guess by modern standard, modern comparison, we see a lot more evidence of what an addict will go through, the fevers, the stress, the
withdrawal, the sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it gives that image of, well, if a vampire doesn't get its fix, it becomes more aggressive, the host or the person that they're taking that life essence from, that blood, is then showing signs of, like, abuse of a substance.
Yeah.
When somebody's taking heroin X amount of time and they're abusing the drug, they become anemic.
Which is exactly what happens here. So
yeah.
This does then pushes the film forward, because he ends his narration or research, shall we say, just brushing up on his latest technique, shall we say.
Yeah.
But he finishes that up by basically saying, this is what happened, and now Dracula's gone into hiding.
Yeah.
It's this wonderful moment. He says that, and then he just cuts to Dracula standing out in the other. I couldn't help but laugh. Hiding in plain sight, I think that's a lot more terrifying than somebody that looks like Frankenstein walking through a public place. They're going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. He can blend in.
Yeah, it's a lot more terrifying, because if you start thinking about it, you go down the route of, how many serial killers managed to do that for years?
Yeah.
Like, just hiding in plain sight. Who was the one Zac Efron played?
Ted Bundy.
Yeah. I think that's playing on the entire thing of it, isn't it?
No, definitely. Hiding in plain sight, having the confidence to be there. And we mentioned earlier on, he doesn't speak to anybody except Jonathan Harker.
No, I'm still going to have to go back and watch the film.
Yeah.
Because, like, I suppose it makes sense, but I'm like, I can't really?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I think it's documented. The thing is about 16 lines of dialogue.
This does lead on to my next point. What was he paid for Curse of Frankenstein, Mike?
£8 a day.
He actually made $750 from this.
Wow.
According to his autobiography.
Going from £8 to almost £800 for around about the same screen time.
Yeah. How many lines of dialogue? 16, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So 16 lines of dialogue with that paycheck basically equates to 46, 87, 88 per line.
Wow.
Cut to the next day then. Doctor's there, because shit's gone south. And she's anyway. The one thing I love in this scene, Tanya proper just laying into the doctor.
Do you know what's wrong with her?
Of course I do.
Then why don't you make her better?
But it is the innocence, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
She doesn't understand what's going on. She just wants to see Aunt Lucy better.
Yeah.
It's quite sad, really.
We get the letter arriving from Van Helsing to Mina, basically saying, I've got some of Harker's stuff over here if you're going to get it. She kind of tells him what's going on, and basically the second that she says to Van Helsing anemia, he's like,
I'd like to see her at once.
Oh, I'd be so grateful.
Oh, just Peter Cushing.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
And you know where he's thinking just from those baby blues. That triggers Van Helsing and Mina to go over and allow Van Helsing to investigate Lucy's deteriorating state.
Yeah.
Obviously seeing the signs Harker mentioned earlier on about becoming anemic. it's following the telltale signs of
Well, yeah,
this is a
they
victim.
don't know that Van Helsing knows what he knows
Yeah.
already, and obviously he's had the journal from Harker, so he knows what
Yeah.
Harker's dealt with as well.
And even when he gives them the advice to follow, it's still very hush-hush. He's not letting them fully in. And I think that's what keeps, calling him Alfred, that's what keeps Alfred so irate and so angry and so frustrated with the situation.
But at the same time, I found this, like, slightly funny, because he's basically saying, like, you're going to question these methods because they seem batshit crazy,
Yeah.
but just, you're going to have to go with them.
Yeah.
And he proper stresses it.
Yeah.
That, you know, you don't do this, she's going to die.
Yeah.
And end of story. Like, there's no two ways about it. You
Yeah.
don't do this, she will not live to see tomorrow.
Yeah.
In steps a stupid maid or housekeeper, whatever she is, basically signs a fucking death warrant.
Yeah.
Basically, she basically does go, come on in, Dracula.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, she opens the door.
Everything within this film has an ounce of sadness to it. You've got Harker, who wants to help everybody. That's why him and Van Helsing are doing it. They want to help the people, even when the people don't want help.
Well, yeah, what was the line? Rid the world of this evil,
Yeah.
or something like that, wasn't it?
And Harker ends up paying the ultimate price for it. Van Helsing has to put him down in a way.
Just take him.
Yeah. The maid, she's doing it to help her. Like, Lucy's pleading. She can't breathe, and she wants help, but she's doing it from
she's really
a place
struggling.
of care.
Yeah.
So she does remove it against the orders and against the wishes because she wants to help. It's what Frankenstein did in Curse of Frankenstein to Elizabeth.
Yeah.
It's playing on the naivety of others, and that's what Dracula's allowing each of his victims to do.
Yeah.
It's sad.
You had the first mention here, so I'm going to bring it in this time. But we can't talk about this scene without discussing another part of the film that's been completely and utterly ruined by Mel Brooks.
Stand up. Not you. Sit. No, not you. You sit. You stand. No, sit. No, you stand. You walk to the terrace door and you go back to sleep. Watch out!
I can't help but think of that whenever I watch something like this. We haven't got a bad word to say about Mel Brooks.
No.
Utterly fantastic, and Leslie Nielsen just completely
Oh,
deadpan
brilliant.
again.
Brilliant as Dracula.
There's no two ways about it. Obviously, this isn't funny, because, yeah, Gerda basically, as I said, signed her death warrant.
Yeah. Unintentionally and doing it from a duty of care.
Like, literally, I think it's like seconds after she takes one of the garlic flowers out, and she's like, oh, come back again to get those.
Yeah.
Seconds you got that music comes in again and
Starts to
just
sway.
drops, and you're like, oh, she's screwed.
Yeah. And I think you have that shot of the window and it's empty, but you have that fog coming through.
Yeah.
And then the next shot, Dracula's there.
The music kicking back in kind of reminded me of Jaws.
I was about to say...
That's what I was trying to say.
It's the theme from Jaws,
Yeah,
isn't it?
because you know he's
there.
coming, but you don't see him.
Yeah.
We don't really see what happens. It kind of just cuts to the next day.
Yeah, with the doctor.
Yeah, and she's
telling
brown
them-
bread.
Yeah, for anybody in the US listening to this,
Oh, yeah.
that's Cockney slang for dead.
Yeah. I never really thought of that. They're not really going to know that. Like bees and honey.
And the apple and pears.
Dog and bone.
Jar of glue.
What's jar of glue?
Not a clue.
Is it?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
The doctor informs them, Lucy passed away during the night. And there's that altercation between Alfred and Van Helsing. Alfred is adamant he doesn't want Van Helsing around because he's keeping secrets, because he has something to do with Jonathan not coming back, and now inadvertently had something to do with this.
He basically blames him, doesn't he? For everything that's happening. Like, you brought us nothing but misery.
Yeah.
Whatever happened, all I know is that you brought us nothing but grief. First Jonathan, and now Lucy. Whoever you are and whatever your motives, please go and leave us in peace.
Gerda
admits to
yeah, what
everything
she's
out.
done. And another nice attention to detail here, when he's like, oh, what time is it? And she's like, oh, around midnight. And midnight is
12 o'clock.
the witching hour.
That's 3 o'clock.
Is it?
Yeah. I can Google it. Just to make sure.
You could have been throwing shade at me here, and I could be the right one, and you could be the fucking wrong one. Yeah.
When is the witching Hour. Oh! We're both right. The witching hour is believed to be a time when witches, demons, and ghosts are most active, and is usually thought to occur at midnight or 3 a.m. Now, according to the stock market, the witching hour is a term used by stock investors to describe the last hour of trading on the third Friday of each month, when the market may suddenly plunge.
Well, that's just fucking boring, anyway. Let's be honest.
Midnight or 3 a.m.
I think we should leave it up to our listeners. So after that fiasco, should we say, or disagreement, Van Helsing, he reaffirms himself, I'd say, because he turns around and he's like, well, here's what's actually going on, and if you don't believe me, here's the final words of Jonathan Harker.
Which could have potentially prevented Lucy's death.
Yeah.
If it was beforehand.
Yeah, that is true. We come into Mina and Arthur or Alfred at this point.
Mina is Alfred's wife.
Arthur's wife?
Yeah.
Alfred's wife.
Yeah, Pennyworth.
They're together and they're going to knock on the door, and it's weirdly a police officer who says he's got Tanya. Weirdly, he caught her out by herself, but it turns out the person that was coercing her.
Before you continue, I just want to make a point of how suspenseful, how positively drawn out this moment is in the film.
Yeah.
And it's one of probably the only moments that still gives me chills. Every single time I've seen the film, I've seen other Hammer films, it's the one line of dialogue, the big reveal that gives me chills, but it's because of the build-up of, well, were you?
Yeah, it's
she was leading me.
Very innocent, and
yeah.
It's just a kid talking about kid shit, basically.
Yeah, and somebody, as you say, coercing them somewhere, and they're taking them to a remote area. And it sounds very ominous, and when you think of modern sensibilities and modern knowledge, it's a very dark moment there. But when they ask who was the woman, she mentions 2 words.
Aunt Lucy.
And it just gives me chills every single time.
It is terrifying.
Because I think it's in Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola version.
Yeah. Gary Oldman played him.
Yeah, you have that really over-the-top moment where she's there with her death dress and veil on. And it's very theatrical when we see it. And I kind of combined the two, like thinking, oh, this woman's guiding you, and then I think the woman in black as well. You know, imagine somebody standing in the woods and they're kind of like beckoning a child into a dark area. If you imagine something like that, and when they're asking, you know, what happened, oh, well, she took me, she said, you know, we were going to go play. And then you think, how is she talking to her as well? The sound of her voice, you know, the image of her, she's dead. You look at the female vampire, you look at Dracula.
Yeah.
Beforehand, you look at Harker. You know, they're pasty white. You know, they're dead. Their lips are blue.
Well, they look ill, don't they?
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
You know, imagine what this child is seeing, but she's seeing comfort in it because it's her Aunt Lucy. But it's just that those 2 words delivered by her that just send chills up my spine with the lead up to it.
There's a moment, we'll come back into it later because I'll bring this back in, where it's a very light-hearted comedic moment out of the whole Aunt Lucy bit again. I'll bring it back in because it's later in the film. But yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to watch like a Pixar film or some shit when I go home now. Like, I don't need that image in my head. Like, I don't think there's anyone else that does it the way Disney and Pixar and that can do it. Like, they managed to make me cry in the first like 3 minutes of fucking Up.
Universal. Land Before Time.
Oh. Please get up. I'm not sure I can, Littlefoot. Yes, you can. Get up.
This is a really, like, mentally scarring, traumatizing film when we were younger. What's the one with the horse gets stuck?
Oh, Never Ending Story.
Yeah.
The Swamp of Despair or something? And it's like, if you have any negative thought, you'll be consumed.
What the hell?
I mean, I'd be 6 feet under, like, just looking at the swamp.
Like, who on earth thought Watership Down would be a good film for kids?
Or The Animals of Farthing Wood.
Yeah, me and my brother used to have the comics for that, man.
I
used to watch the show as well.
I always remember the hedgehogs running across the road, and then they get scared, so they roll up, and the car runs them over.
Dark. They were dark, man. Like,
I want to watch Happy Meal.
Where were we?
Aunt Lucy. we were getting scared.
I went off on a fucking tangent, didn't I?
Yes, I suppose.
Alfred doesn't believe Tanya.
No.
Because, obviously, Lucy's meant to be dead.
Yeah.
So he goes down to the crypt to basically check, and he gets down there and finds that Lucy's body is missing.
Yeah. Which is quite unnerving anyway. That's your sister. You're mourning the loss of her.
Yeah.
You now got... I assume it's their daughter or some form of relative.
Yeah.
Coming in and saying, I've seen Aunt Lucy. And you're already trying to deal with that loss anyway.
Yeah.
And tempers are high because Van Helsing's around and
Yeah.
it's not getting on with him. And then to go down there and see that it's barren.
Yeah.
I like Michael Gough in almost everything I've seen him in.
Yeah.
He delivers a lot more with his eyes than he does with his vocalization. He's very formal, very stern, very forward, and that seems to be every character that he plays.
Yeah.
With the exception of maybe the one character in Sleepy Hollow. But everything else he delivers with his eyes.
Yeah.
And I think it's fantastic, especially putting him next to someone like Peter Cushing, who can emote through his facial expression.
Yeah.
It's a good dynamic that they have, but like I said, when he sees that it is barren, he doesn't know how to comprehend it. He doesn't want to admit that there's truth behind what Van Helsing is saying.
Telling him, yeah. So from there, cuts to Tanya basically being taken by Lucy.
Yeah.
And we know, obviously, she's a vampire now. And you kind of... Well, I was watching it and I was like, oh, they're going to kill another kid. I mean, like, they did in Curse of Frankenstein, and we're gonna see another one. Obviously, they didn't show it in Curse of Frankenstein.
No.
But just, as I said in the previous episode, just that shot of that decimated bag was more than enough.
Yeah, to signify that was there. Are they going to take the next step and show the child being bitten or show the child being in harm in any way?
Yeah.
There's a lot of foreboding. And it's from that delivery of, well, that conversation that they have in the delivery of Aunt Lucy.
Yeah.
And then seeing that she's done her again.
Yeah.
You know, she's taken her exactly the same way, or we assume exactly the same way. She's trusting, when I said earlier about how sad this film is, and, you know, with Elizabeth in Curse of Frankenstein, it's playing on the naivety of the characters, and now we're doing it to, you know, the most naive character that's in the film, a child.
The most innocent as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest themes in Hammer films, even going into the future.
Yeah.
With the, you know, films from 2012 onward, it preys on the innocence.
Yeah.
And explores the loss of innocence.
Yeah.
And we have this child being led to what we assume is going to be a feeding.
Yeah, well, she's basically taken her back to her crypt to feed before she goes back to her slumber, should we say.
Yeah.
Fancy word for sweet folks, if you don't know what that means. But she doesn't get back to the crypt.
No, fortunately not. No.
Yeah. Well, yeah, fortunately. I thought you said unfortunately then. I was like, oh my god, Mike, that's a child. Yeah, fortunately, doesn't go back to the crypt because Arthur bumped into him.
Yeah.
But again, this is the whole preying on innocence thing you were on about.
Yeah.
She proper leans into playing on his emotions to be like, oh, I'm alive, like, how about a hug and a kiss? And then, luckily, fortunately, Van Helsing manages to step in with some pretty cool special effects in this moment.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, the makeup was under the cross already when it got pressed. But to
really,
see the
I had
child's
no
skin...
idea. No idea. You ruined the movie magic now, Mike.
Yeah, he just physically, actually burnt her. But you mentioned a really good point, and it just made me think about how Lucy preys on her past life.
Yeah.
Because she's somebody new now. She's now a vampire.
She's not Lucy anymore.
No. It's cruel. And it makes me think of, not to the grotesque extent or to the barbaric extent of Deadites in Evil Dead, how they prey on people's emotions of their host.
The voices and
and trying to lure them in.
Yeah.
And she's doing the exact same thing. Because as soon as they go in for the hug, she's eyeing his neck.
Yeah.
It's cruel.
But yeah, manages to save Arthur.
Yep.
Who's kind of like, well, shit. At this point, like, he doesn't really know what to do. And to be fair, like, Van Helsing's quite empathetic, I think, in the next couple of scenes, in this scene and the ones that follow, when obviously they gotta do what they gotta do.
Yeah.
Because he basically turns around to Arthur and he's like, oh, can you let me use her so she can lead us to Dracula? And Arthur's like, no, I don't want this, something like evil to possess her body any further or something like that. So, yeah, basically he's like, okay, kill her.
And it adds credence as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To Van Helsing's stance of not telling them the full story and what's going on earlier on, because it's hard to believe, it's hard to understand, and unless you see it, you're not going to believe it.
Yeah.
And in Alfred's case, he had to see Lucy.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And see the mark of the cross on her forehead.
Yeah, you're kind of wondering whether or not, like, could Van Helsing have stepped in sooner, or was he, like, kind of just waiting to be like, what, I need him to see what she is first?
Or was he using the child?
Oh, damn.
Because
that's bad either way.
Yeah, he could have been following them and watching them, hoping that they would lead him to Dracula.
I didn't think of that. Very different ways of looking at it. Two different ways of looking at it, to be fair. They know then they've obviously got to do what they've got to do.
Yeah.
And Lucy, well, she's not going to survive much longer.
No.
And yeah, this is where I was saying earlier about you don't see Harker being sticked.
Yeah.
This one, they don't shy away from it.
No, and it did cause him a bit of trouble with certainly the BBFC.
How do you mean?
In terms of showing the actual penetration of the stake into the chest, with the blood gushing out, and she's wearing a white dress anyway, so it pops that red colour.
Just exacerbates everything, basically, yeah.
It was too much for that scene. I know there's another big scene that had problems with the censors, but that comes a little later.
Yeah.
Fortunately, with this one, it was used in the US release.
Okay.
Return of Dracula, which was then changed to Horror of Dracula. So when we see it on, say, like the Studio Canal releases, we get it in quite good detail.
Yeah.
It's not like the Curse of Frankenstein where we have the VHS rip for the eye in the jar and we've lost the head.
Yeah, it's true. They couldn't really give us a decent copy of that, did they?
No.
Why didn't somebody think to keep stuff like that?
Some of the films that were stored around the world, they were usually stored in salt mines.
Hang on. So what?
Salt mines.
Salt mines were used to store films?
Yeah, film reels. It was cool, there was moisture in the air, it was a good place for it, but it was all absorbed into the walls, so the moisture wouldn't go onto the reels.
That is mental. I genuinely had no idea about that.
Well, Day of the Dead is filmed in one of those salt mines.
Great fucking film as well.
Yeah, I love that film. Controversial, it's my favourite of the Romero trilogy.
I wouldn't say that's controversial. I'd probably say, for me, that's probably up there as well.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love Bub?
Rhodes.
I don't think anyone liked Rhodes, to be fair.
He was great.
He was a dick. It was fantastic when he got ripped apart.
Joe D'Amato.
Yeah.
I love him. I think he's fantastic. I wish his career kept going. I love him as Rhodes.
Yeah, one of the most iconic death scenes.
Yeah.
That again was echoed in another massive death scene in Shaun of the Dead.
Yep.
The guy gets pulled through the window.
David.
Was it? David, that's it.
Yeah,
the
Dylan
guy
Moran.
from Black Books.
Yeah, Dylan Moran.
Anyway, he brings Arthur back over to see his sister again, and she's back to Lucy. She's back to the way she was.
Yeah.
Which obviously got to be comforting to him. I think he kind of realises what's happening. He kind of needs to get his head around this. So the next time we see them, they're both drinking.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't need a stiff drink? But again, Malbrush ruined another scene, man.
I was waiting for you to mention it.
Now she's dead.
No, she's not.
She's alive?
She's Nosferatu.
She's Italian?
The funny behind the scenes fact with that. He knew he was going to get covered, but he didn't know to the extent. Mal Brooks didn't tell him. And then he was like, oh, I hit her again. And then when he went to do it the third time, it was completely improv. The actor to him, I was like,
she's dead enough.
I mean, it's like comedic levels of blood. Yeah. It rivals probably Evil Dead, I'd say.
Yeah.
Just in that one scene alone. The earlier scene with Van Helsing, where he's listening to himself when he's doing his notes with his dictaphone, him explaining to Arthur, again, opens up like a new bit of the lore that we didn't know about. Where, again, this is very much a different fish to the 31 film or Stoker's novel, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, this opens up the entirely new bit of lore, as I was saying.
And a new dynamic between the two characters.
Yeah, because there's a lot more back and forth now.
Yeah.
They're working more in synergy with each other.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good way to put it, because there's more conversing and less shutting down the other person.
So yeah, he basically turns into a detective, and they need to track down where Dracula has gone.
Yeah.
What's the name of... How do you pronounce it? I'm going to let you take the rein on this. How do you pronounce the place where they go?
Igstad.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's one of the reasons you're here, Mike.
To mispronounce things.
So I don't have to. So yeah, they're looking to track down Dracula's address for his resting place.
Yeah, because the Igstad is the customs department that they go to try and find where the coffin was delivered to or where it was travelling to.
And I know we talk about Mel Brooks a lot, but we go into this bit and we don't need Mel Brooks for this bit. This is like this is comedic enough in its own right, this bit.
This for me is Frankenstein biting the eyes. And the whole haggling over the eyes and coughing his guts up.
Yeah, this is brilliant, as you said, very much like Barter in the eyes.
Yeah.
He turns around and he's like, no, absolutely not, you can't see anything. And you just see Arthur in the background just slowly getting something out of his pocket. You see the little flash of money. And then the guy just turns around and he's like, well, he is a doctor.
Yeah.
Get the address, go to the address. It's like a funeral parlour, something like that.
Yeah.
And again, another fantastic comedic moment here.
Yeah.
An old man came here once to see his dear departed, and he fell down these stairs. It was quite amusing. He came to pay his last respects, and he remained to share them.
that comedic gold, it's like you mentioned before the recording this episode, that it's reminiscent of the man telling the toast while he's drinking the punch. It's just a break from...
Breaks it all up, doesn't it?
Yeah, breaks up that kind of like grim sadness that's throughout the film.
The fact that, they're technically trying to track down a corpse.
Yeah.
a living, breathing corpse that's going around draining people of their blood. Lo and behold, coffin's gone.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. But the Undertaker is gobsmacked. He was right here. They don't get out and walk away.
It's a bit of an odd moment, but again, you kind of get the feeling he's gone, but he's not gone too far.
Yeah. Our characters return home, where we've already established Mina has changed. She's now glowing, but anemic.
That's a fantastic sentence.
She already returned from a war looking like she just had the best 2.5 to 3 minutes of her life that Arthur couldn't give her.
There's a funny behind-the-scenes story to do with that. There was a few botch takes where they messed things up. The actress was struggling a little bit. So Terence, the director, stepped in and said to Melissa Stribling, do the scene, just imagine you've had the best sex of your life all night long. And she wrapped it up in the next day. Kind of says it all, really.
She returns back, she's wearing a scarf, she's covering up her neck.
Yeah.
When Arthur gives Mina the cross for protection, he's doing it out of love, he's doing it out of caring, the naivety, the innocence of believing that it can't affect her. And as soon as he closes her hand, she crumbles to the ground. Stribling's performance is more manipulative than it is the polar opposite of being bedridden and
Yeah,
vicious.
she's like playing him at
Yeah.
that point, like playing both sides, basically.
Yeah, so she knows what's gone on, and because she's turning,
Yeah.
she's under Dracula's control.
Power, yeah.
So she's willing to play along and continue the charade.
Facade.
Yeah.
You know, shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
And Van Helsing, he tried to get Arthur to agree with Lucy. He refused. But Van Helsing's like, well, you need to let me do what I wanted to do last time.
Yeah.
And we'll get to the bottom of this then. They come up with a plan. Okay, we know all the entrances and exits. You cover that window, I'll cover this window.
Yeah.
He's not getting any, he ain't going anywhere. End of story.
Yeah, because they're patrolling in the garden, aren't they, at night?
Yeah.
We'll give her every protection we can. Tonight we'll watch the windows of her room. They face two sides of the house, don't they?
Yes.
We have it within our power to rid the world of this evil. And with God's help, we'll succeed.
Smash cut later to Dracula's just at the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah.
No, absolutely zero explanation is given.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I love, but I hate it at the same time. He's found his way in, regardless.
Yeah.
Nobody ever seems to run. None of these women ever seem to run away from Dracula.
No.
There's like an overt sexualization to the entirety of the way it's done and everything. And it comes into play massively in this scene. And I think you were telling me earlier before we recorded the podcast, they had issues with this scene with the censors as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well, I described it to you, the copy we saw, as it was essentially going into softcore porn.
Yeah.
And you can see when it cuts because the footage is not as good as, you know, the rest of the Blu-ray.
One of the things that Terence Fisher, and it becomes prevalent throughout his catalogue of films, he mentioned that Dracula preyed upon the sexual frustrations of his female victims. As I mentioned jokingly earlier, how Mina was glowing but anemic. It is that sense. He's preyed upon her.
A lot of people noted Lee's version of Dracula for his like dark, brooding sexuality.
Yeah.
But there was like an implication throughout most of, well, all of Lee's performances as Dracula. The women are like into it.
Yeah.
They're quite happy to be dominated by this.
Yeah.
This vampire, basically.
It's the control, it's the domineering side.
Yeah.
Not having free will for themselves. It's been stripped away from them. But why does Dracula go there to begin with? It's because his partner has now died.
Yeah.
As a result of Jonathan's actions. So, he went back and he was going to take Lucy.
Yeah.
They killed Lucy. Okay, I'm going after Mina.
When Mina gets bitten, there's that wonderful cut quickly that you brought it up earlier, I think. What was the film you mentioned?
39 Steps.
Yeah, with the train whistle, isn't it?
Yeah.
The owl. They use the screech for an owl in this to kind of mask Mina's scream.
Now it leads into the next morning.
Correct. This is when Arthur goes upstairs to check on Mina, and lo and behold, she's close to death, shall we say, yeah. Very anemic.
Very dry on blood.
But then, like, it cracks me up if people say anemic, I immediately just go and drink a pint of Guinness. Which takes us into the blood transfusion scene.
Yeah.
For me, I love it because it reaffirms that Van Helsing may be a vampire hunter, but he is very much a man. He's very much a man of science.
Yeah, he's still a doctor.
Yeah.
He's got a doctorate, and I assume it's going to be in the medical profession and not a doctorate of folklore and vampirism.
He could be one of both.
He can sign death certificates, so he's got to be...
He's got to be semi-legit.
Yeah. Just sit still like that for a minute.
And Arthur's giving his blood to try and save her, and of course that's going to put him down a peg.
Yeah, double-edged sword, basically,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. It's going to weaken him, but it's going to make her stronger.
Yeah. But Mike, the real question here is, did he get biscuits and tea after he did his blood transfusion?
No, he offered him wine!
Bloody hell, I need to donate blood more. Like, if they were giving me wine afterwards, I would, I think.
Well, they offer squash.
I usually go for tea and a penguin.
I usually go outside.
You're not good with needles, though, are you?
No, I'm fine with needles.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I love the feeling of being bled.
What the fuck did you just say?
So Arthur's just enjoying himself downstairs with his
much.
mega pint of wine. The mega pint.
He calls her a Paul.
Crimp.
Van Helsing comes down then. He's obviously donated blood as well. You can see he's feeling a bit there.
Yeah.
Arthur turns around to the maid. Gough, the one who basically killed Lucy.
Intentionally. She didn't put a pillow over her face.
Accidentally. He's like, oh, I'll go back down to the cellar and get Mr. Van Helsing another bottle of wine, like a really nice bottle of wine. And she's like, oh, well, last time I disobeyed orders, like, what happened? And immediately, it's like a light bulb goes off in Van Helsing when she's like, oh, she said not to go down to the cellar. And he's like, motherfucker! And you can see the switches like that.
Yeah.
And he, like, Olympic sprints down the stairs.
Yeah.
He goes down and finds the coffin. And it shouldn't be funny, but it is. But there's this wonderful moment where he finds the coffin, and you just see Dracula coming in the background. And he's just like, oh, shit. Like that.
He went out for milk and eggs. Just came back and he's like, whoop.
As you said earlier, it's like wonderful moment with Grandpa. Just walks in, puts his hat down, sees by, whoop. Just picks his hat back up and leaves. It's like the deer caught in the headlights. Like.
Yeah. It's like, wait, you're a superhuman.
Yeah, like, you're scared of some guy who's donated a load of blood as well. Like, he's going to be weak as fuck anyway. He manages to close and lock the door.
Yeah.
And he's battering 3 kinds of shit out of it, like, open the door. And Arthur just, like, opens the door like, yo, what's happening? Peter Cushing's like, move.
Didn't you just see him run past you? No, I was drinking wine.
And you just hear a scream from upstairs, and I'll be honest, first time I watched it, I was like, well, he's killed her as well.
Good. Now what happened?
You said I must come back to Madam, so I came up here, and he looked like the devil.
Now what happened?
It was a bit more sign of the time, should we say.
Oh, 100% sign of the time.
Like, you wouldn't see that as the norm in a film set nowadays.
No.
We fucking hope not anyway. No. Jokes aside, yeah.
She's distraught. She's panicked. She saw the face of Dracula, saw his eyes, and she's terrified.
She goes into, like, a lot of detail about how terrifying he was. Her being so hysterical as well, she keeps saying he picked her up like a baby.
Yeah.
Which, like, I'm not saying Mina's fat or anything, but she's a fully grown woman.
Yeah.
She would have also been lifeless and limp as well. From there, then, it goes into, like, almost a chase.
Yeah. We're coming to the closing.
Yeah, we're leading up to the big climactic finish and everything now.
Yeah. It's almost like a chariot race.
Well, it's like they're following a path of destruction. They find the driver that Dracula killed to get hold of the carriage.
Yeah. In a matter of no time, we're back to where we started.
Castle Dracula.
Yeah. Very similar to Curse of Frankenstein, how we start in the jail and we return to the jail.
Well, again, much like as you said, Curse of Frankenstein, it goes full circle.
Yeah.
Basically.
And what the 31 tried to do and failed abysmally at doing.
Yeah.
Because that third act is rushed.
It's just, you don't get time to actually enjoy it, so to speak.
No. I think we get the mirror gag, and then it's like, oh, I know who you are, and then he's like, I'm a bat.
Bat?
Well, we see him fly around the room, and then
without a direct quote from the film.
Yeah.
I'm a bat.
That was my impression of Bela Lugosi saying, I'm a bat.
Well, Dracula's going desperate at this point, really.
Exactly. He's trying to cover his tracks. He's trying to make Mina his.
Why is he burying her?
They won't be able to find her.
Ah.
I mean, all she has to do is die. I mean, that truthfully, all she has to do is die, and she'll be reborn.
Yeah, as Dracula's bride.
Yeah, so speed up the process. He can't drink her blood before the sun comes up.
Yeah.
So bury her so she's protected from the sun.
Yeah. We talked about earlier, Christopher Lee had issues with the contact lenses.
Yes.
I shouldn't really laugh. When he's burying Mina, Lee actually had a bit of an accident of ended up falling into the grave with the stunt woman who was playing Mina. He's digging, and when he goes to throw Mina into the open grave, he misjudged how heavy the stunt double was going to be, lost his footing completely, and just fell in the grave with her.
If only that made it into the film.
I know, can you imagine? I'd love to see that on a gag reel.
I was about to say, why do you need a stunt woman to lie in a grave whilst you've been buried?
In case Christopher Lee falls on top of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of interesting, fun behind-the-scenes stuff there, folks.
they catch up and catch him in the act, so he flees into the castle.
Yeah.
Where everything is drawn, so it's a lot darker in there.
And we get the final fight.
The showdown.
Yeah, the showdown between Van Helsing and Dracula.
Yeah.
And like I said before, he's getting desperate. Like, he just lobs a candlestick at him at one point.
Yeah.
He's kind of running out of options. He knows he's screwed.
He's a cornered animal.
Yeah, basically. Trying to claw and fight his way out of the corner. Nobody puts Dracula in the corner. I'm just imagining Peter Cushing. Peter Cushing lifting Christopher Lee. Yeah, he thinks he's won. He's got Van Helsing. He's basically choking him, and he's like last ditch effort. Van Helsing manages to get out of it and leaps quite magnificently.
Yeah.
Onto the table and everything. Again, he did this himself. It may not seem like much, but obviously Dracula just fell into a hole. Let's be careful, please, guys. But yeah, the production didn't want him to do it, but he insisted on doing it.
Peter Cushing, this is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that stage dive into the drapes to, open up the curtain to stop Dracula advancing.
Yeah.
We talk about Dracula being desperate. That is desperation.
Effort, yeah.
And then, of course, we get the really awesome 2 candlesticks.
Yeah, which was against each other. Cushing's idea, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. He's said to have mentioned that we use crucifixes throughout the film. By this point, it will be a bit stale.
Yeah.
And then proposed using these 2 clunky candlesticks.
Is now an incredibly iconic moment in the film.
It's brilliant, and of course pushes Dracula further back into
the sunlight. Jokes aside, this is graphic.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Like, it reminded me of first time when I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark when he opens the Ark of the Covenant.
Surprisingly, it reminds me of the first time I watched Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, rather than Raiders.
We
have to drink in the cup.
Of Christ.
Yeah. Seeing Dracula starting to turn to dust, he puts his hand down, and then you see kind of like his hand turn to ash.
Well, that, funny enough, that's the final shot that stays static on the credits, isn't it?
So whereas we had the guillotine in the previous one, we have the hand in this one.
Yeah, another static finish, isn't it?
But talking about that transformation for Dracula turning into ash and things like that.
Yeah, this is where they ran into other issues again,
It's
isn't it?
another point of censorship. That came out in the British release rather than the US release.
Oh, really?
I tell a lie. it was both the British and the US release had this one part cut. And it's where he reaches up his other hand, because of course the one hand's turned to ash,
pulls his skin off,
and pulls the flesh from his face off.
Did it with mortician's wax, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that it was just easy pull.
That's so cool, man.
And what I love is his eyes are marbles, and you can still see his fangs.
Yeah.
I love that because it's like, oh, look at him.
Again, it reminded me of the final bit in Sean Cunningham's Salem's Lot.
Not Toby Hooper's.
No. Toby Hooper's Salem's Lot. The very end, where you see the master turn into dust. It's like a very similar concept. Just Toby Hooper's macabre sense of humour, just that mouth opening with the smile at the end.
Yeah.
So we just finish on that final shot with Dracula now dust and his inscription ring, should we say? Or even with the music and everything, you don't really feel like this is it.
No.
It's not over.
No.
This is like half-time, should we say?
It's a weird one because we said it with Curse of Frankenstein. We don't see the guillotine drop.
Down, no.
We don't feel like this is the end for Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Whereas with Dracula, we see him turn to dust, but it still doesn't feel like this is finished.
Yeah. And of course, we know it's not finished because it spawned several sequels afterwards.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about them in a separate episode, but...
So what are your final thoughts?
Fantastic film. Again, I think I'm going to say, like I did with Curse of Frankenstein, this is better than the Universal adaptation.
Yeah.
And that is saying something, because I don't think... For me, personally, Lugosi was the best of the best. He set the bar for Dracula for me. Wasn't even because he was the first Dracula I saw. I can't remember who the first Dracula I saw was. It definitely wasn't Bela Lugosi. But yeah, there was just something about him. But Lee in this one, again, I'd put him up there as the best of the best. I think it was Empire rated him number 7 in greatest horror movie characters. So like that speaks volumes in its own right.
His interpretation of
Christopher Lee's interpretation of Dracula, and I think he was specifically in this film as well. Yeah, like it's a hell of a film. It's a lot more out there and a lot more daring than Universal were. You know, by today's standards, perhaps a bit tame, but you know, we've had the splatter decade, torture porn, and God knows what else since this film has come out. So you've got to think about it in context. This would have been quite shocking for the time. Again, bringing this back, you wouldn't have a lot of the horror films we have today without this, without the Universal adaptation. Shit, even without like the Nosferatu 1922 film. These all shaped horror in more ways than one to everything we know and love today. What were your final thoughts on it then, Mike?
Probably my favourite Dracula film.
Period? Like end of story?
Yeah.
Wow,
I'd go as far and say,
statement.
it's my favourite Dracula film. I feel it's the most tight of the different narratives that we get. I like Coppola's take and putting Vlad the Impaler and having all those different things. I think some of the performances in that are absolutely awful. And some of the choices that they make in it are dreadful.
We're just going to sidestep around Keanu Reeves' accent. Because we both love Keanu Reeves and he's a god.
Yeah.
He does not deserve any bad things to be said about him.
So we're going to talk about Winona Ryder?
Oh, now I just feel bad. No, she's in Beetlejuice. I love Beetlejuice.
Fair.
And I can't say that again because it appeared on the podcast.
And I'd say it's my favourite portrayal of Dracula as well. I'm firmly in the ground of I do not like Bela Lugosi as Dracula. I think it's more to do with the failings of Todd Browning's film than it is his performance. Apparently he was fantastic on the stage and I would love to have seen what he did on the stage.
Well, that and obviously he did the Spanish, wasn't it?
He didn't do that.
Which one? He did a different language version, I know that.
He didn't.
Lugosi? I thought he did.
In 1931, the Universal released both the English language and the Spanish. The Spanish version
went into a lot more detail, didn't it? About a lot.
It had a hell of a lot more to offer. The only thing I would do is take Lugosi from the English language one and put him into the Spanish one, because I feel like the cinematography in it, the pacing of it was a hell of a lot better.
Are you sure he was in it?
In the Spanish version, it was Carlos Villarius. But yeah, probably my favourite Dracula film, my favourite Dracula performance with Christopher Lee. I love Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
So whatever Peter Cushing's in, I'm obviously going to love her anyway. Like Rogue One, thought it was fantastic.
Let's not go there, Mike.
And that, yeah, I'm a big Universal fan, but I've got to say this is leaps and bounds better.
That's a hell of a statement, to be fair. Not really sure we can add anything more to that. So
no, I think we've said the majority of the things we need to say about the film.
Yeah.
It speaks for itself.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, hopefully if you haven't watched it, you have listened to this podcast, you know, at least get you in the mood to go and watch it. Because regardless of, you know, whether or not you like it, you can't deny the fact that like this and Curse of Frankenstein have had such a monumental impact on not just the horror genre but films as a whole.
Definitely.
Like British film especially. So yeah, go and watch it if you haven't seen it.
I think it's available on different streaming services. I've seen it before on Netflix. I've seen it on Prime most recently, so if you do have access to any of them. Alternatively, you can buy the Studio Canal Blu-rays. There's 3 disc sets.
So yeah, I don't really think there's much more we can add on that at the moment. Obviously, follow us on all the socials, on Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, YouTube. And yeah, also head over to the website, www.hook-on-horror.com. And yeah, until next time, folks, thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.